Part 1. Entering the volatile, intellectual space of postmodernism, the most powerful cognitive subversion trend of the 20th century. We will face two great genius minds, Michel Foucault and Jacques Derrida, to perform a large-scale mental deconstruction, aiming to dissect all layers of illusion imprisoning modern human minds. Postmodernism does not appear as a new dogmatic system to force your compliance. On the contrary, it is an awakening bell shaking the very roots of what we once considered obviously true or immutable truth. The foundational argument and the opening shot for this entire cognitive revolution is the irreversible collapse of meta-narratives, a philosophical term used to refer to big stories, macro scenarios woven by the ideology of each era, aiming to establish order and control behavior of the whole society. For centuries humans have lived and operated based on the naive belief that there is a single path to progress, a single metric to evaluate a human value, and those large scenarios have accidentally turned into a giant iron cage, binding all boundaries of individual cognitive freedom, preventing us from living with our true authentic selves. You rush into life like a pre-programmed machine, trying to complete milestones drawn by society, from studying and passing exams, finding a stable job, marrying, having children, to accumulating infinite wealth. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself whether those goals are truly the deep desires of your soul, or just invisible commands from the meta-narratives manipulating your perception daily? To provide an objective and solid empirical scientific foundation for the foundational skepticism of postmodernist thought, extensive studies at Harvard University regarding social cognitive psychology and social constructivism have brought extremely valuable conclusions. Leading scientists at Harvard conducted long-term surveys to measure the impact of imposed cultural norms on human belief systems and mental health. The empirical research results point out a shocking truth: that the human brain does not receive the world in a pure, objective way, but is always shaped by a cognitive filter pre-installed by society. When an individual tries to force themselves to achieve preset standards of meta-narratives, such as having to be successful before 30, having a high social status, or possessing a model family prototype, their psychological system constantly falls into a permanent state of stress, creating extremely heavy peer pressure and leading to serious existential crises. Scientific research from Harvard University proves that most psychological trauma, anxiety, and depression of modern humans do not stem from actual material deprivation, but arise from the helplessness when failing to fit into the ideal mold drawn by the ideology of the era. Our perception is suffocated by illusory expectations, causing the frontal lobe and the individual value evaluation system to always fall into a state of severe cognitive conflict. When you see people around you achieving social criteria, you immediately develop a fear of being left behind, forgetting that those criteria themselves are just an artificial story and nothing more. Piercing through this cognitive cage, we will together dissect the core metaphor of the mold and clay shards to understand the exact way society is manipulating your life. Imagine the meta narratives of society are like solid iron molds mass, produced with fixed sizes and shapes, while the essence of each individual in real life is soft, unique clay possessing its own rich characteristics and potential. Instead of letting the clay develop freely according to its natural shape, traditional education, social media, and crowd prejudice constantly use pressure to shape, trim, and tightly force your clay into that pre-made mold. When you see everyone around you having an identical life path, you immediately develop a state of panic, self-doubt, and believe that you are a failure. If you step off that track, the objective reality out there is inherently an extremely vast space full of distinct paths. But the linguistic and ideological cage of meta-narratives has blinded your eyes, making you completely helpless to see your own unique value. You are torturing your own soul by clutching a success map drawn by others, and then falling into the deep abyss of anxiety when seeing yourself not matching the crowd. The raw life out there does not impose any mold on you. It is the word cage and the big stories of the era that have built the wall imprisoning the free steps of humanity. The revolutionary subversion of Michel Foucault and Jacques Derrida against meta-narratives is a supreme cognitive deconstruction, helping modern humans shatter all illusions to reclaim the right to self-determination for their own lives. These two great philosophers coldly affirmed that a single, absolute objective truth existing outside humans does not exist. Every value system, moral rule, or aesthetic standard that we are worshipping is actually just artificial structures built by humans themselves to serve the purpose of maintaining social order of a specific historical period. When you deconstruct those big stories, you will wake up to realize that there is no common template for happiness, no single definition for wisdom, and all boundaries separating success from failure, wealth from poverty, are just temporary labels. Recognizing and stepping out of the conceptual cage of meta-narratives helps humans completely relieve psychological pressure, end all blaming of destiny, and stop comparing themselves with anyone. Your life is not a chapter written for the novel of society, but a blank page completely free for you to personally write the most authentic values of your own. You will no longer bow before the judgments of the crowd, no longer torment yourself for not reaching illusory standards, because you understand that all social structures can be dismantled and redefined from the beginning. This powerful cognitive shift of postmodernism finds a deep, miraculous, and astonishingly consistent harmony with the supreme ancient Eastern wisdom, especially the non-attachment spirit, no self doctrine, and emptiness concept of Buddhism, as well as the formless nature of Tao in Taoist thought. Eastern sages thousands of years ago penetrated the nature of reality, realizing that the greatest tragedy of human life begins from the attachment to names and forms, which means humans mistake labels, linguistic conventions, and social standards for true objective reality. When Buddhism talks about emptiness, it does not mean this world is negatively void, but affirms that All things and concepts do not possess an inherent, fixed, unchanging self. They always transform, depending on causes, conditions, and contexts. Postmodernist thought, when demanding the overthrow of meta-narratives, is performing a journey back to the raw, pristine core of reality, where humans discard all prejudices, all framing templates, to live directly with the most raw, genuine experiences of life. When you are no longer imprisoned by words, no longer manipulated by the mold of the era, your mind will automatically achieve the supreme state of absolute freedom. Your soul will be completely healed from cognitive wounds, to walk freely, steadfastly, and wisely amid a constantly changing universe. Part 2. Moving to the next content part of the Postmodern Philosophy series, we will join the brilliant philosopher Michel Foucault to perform a profound cognitive operation named Archaeology of Knowledge, aiming to dissect the sediment layers of prejudice that have been silently manipulating the entire thought of human society across many centuries. Michel Foucault pointed out that human knowledge is not a continuous and pure progressive flow toward objective truth as we always mistakenly assume. In fact, knowledge is a system of norms and definitions constantly transforming deeply according to each historical period. What this era considers correct and standard can be viewed by another era as a mistake, madness, or eccentricity. Digging deep into the history of thought helps us wake up realizing that the prejudice cage you are self-imposing on yourself daily is not an eternal law of the universe but merely an artificial product of a specific historical period. When you understand this, you will have enough courage to liberate your mind from outdated metrics, freely redefining your life. To prove this volatile nature of social norms, extensive scientific studies at Oxford University regarding the history of thought and behavioral sociology have provided us with extremely valuable empirical evidence. Leading scientists at Oxford University conducted analyses of the shifting patterns of behavioral norm models across many centuries, proving a shocking truth that human definitions of states like success, normalcy, or even moral standards depend entirely on the power structure of each era. Research from Oxford University indicates that when the social system changes, the human nervous system and perception automatically adjust their value evaluation method according to new convention sets. Failing to recognize the historical nature of these norms will immediately create extremely heavy psychological pressure on the cognitive system of the individual, causing them to always fall into a state of torment and anxiety when seeing themselves deviate from the era standards. Modern science from Oxford University illuminates the vision of Michel Foucault, affirming that your cognitive world will be immediately liberated and expanded when you know how to dissect old convention layers, viewing reality in the most pure objective way. Piercing through this operating nature, we will together analyze a core metaphor provided by Michel Foucault to expose the root issue, which is the geological sediment layers. Imagine thought and social prejudices are like sediment layers of earth and rock stacking upon each other over thousands of years. The later layer presses on the previous layer, forming a solid surface that we stand upon, mistakenly thinking it is the eternal natural ground. In real daily life, most humans are suffering because they accidentally consider artificial convention layers of the era as the immutable truth of life. When you blame yourself for not having a illustrious career or not possessing huge wealth before a certain age, you are accidentally letting a sediment layer of social conventions of the 21st century press down and suffocate your own cognitive freedom. The objective reality out there is inherently an extremely free space filled with vivid resources waiting for your exploration, but clutching historical metrics has blindsided your eyes, making you completely helpless to see distinct paths. If you want to change reality, making your mind map clean, the most core step is to conduct a cognitive archaeology, dismantling the entire prejudice system imprisoning your life. This sharp cognitive liberation by Michel Foucault shares a deep, miraculous, and consistent harmony with the non-attachment spirit and impermanence philosophy of ancient Eastern wisdom. Sages from thousands of years ago penetrated the nature of reality, realizing that everything in the universe is always within a constantly transforming flow. No name, form, or conventional metric is immutable or eternal. Humans stubbornly using rigid concepts and dogmatic metrics to impose upon a constantly changing reality is the deep root of all conflict, gloom, and suffering. The philosophy of Michel Foucault and Eastern wisdom meet at a core point that social conventions are merely temporary tools to maintain order, not the genuine reality itself. When shedding attachment to words, knowing how to expand perception boundaries to bend with the natural flow of life, you will learn to become much more compassionate toward yourself, knowing how to heal cognitive wounds, achieving the state of true, wise freedom amid a changing world. Are you brave enough to look straight into outdated metrics, to personally pull down the wall imprisoning social prejudice, or not? Part 3. Continuing to delve deep into the intellectual realm of postmodernism, we will join the philosopher Michel Foucault to expose a highly sophisticated and deep mechanism directly operating and manipulating the entire human life. This cognitive subversion concept is known as power, knowledge. Through his sharp philosophical lens, he shattered the naive human illusion about a neutral, objective, eternal knowledge. Michel Foucault coldly affirmed that power is not a tangible entity existing merely as physical violence, mechanical force, or top-down commands imposed by supreme ruling institutions. True power exists within a highly invisible, sophisticated, and terrifying form, which is the ability to permeate every single cell of social life, entering daily words and shaping and producing what is called knowledge. He pointed out the inseparable symbiotic relationship between these two elements, declaring that power produces knowledge, and conversely, knowledge is the ultimate tool to legitimize and expand power. Whoever controls society possesses the right to establish and define what is truth, what is standard knowledge, and what is correct. Modern society does not govern humans with physical chains. Instead, it imprisons humanity with an artificial regime of truth, where metrics and concepts are constructed to classify, to label, and to force our minds to voluntarily comply without a single doubt. You always believe that the knowledge and metrics about success, work competence, or moral values that you tiredly chase daily are eternal objective truths of human life. But in fact, all are merely invisible tools created to control perception and restrict your behavior into a pre-made order, making you lose supreme sovereignty over your own life. You rush into the race for titles, certificates, and social status, thinking it is knowledge elevating your own value without knowing you are voluntarily entering a sophisticated governing cage established by the power system to provide an objective, empirical scientific foundation, proving This powerful symbiotic relationship. Extensive studies at Oxford University regarding institutional sociology and behavioral psychology have brought extremely valuable conclusions. Leading scientists at Oxford University conducted long-term empirical experiments measuring cognitive and behavioral responses of individuals before information sources, labeled as official or highly authoritative. The research results point out a shocking truth that the human cognitive system has an automatic tendency to drop its skeptical weapons and establish unconditional compliance when receiving concepts and definitions provided by powerful institutions. Empirical science from Oxford University proves that when a social norm is branded as scientific knowledge or era standard, humans tend to automatically absorb and turn it into a subjective cognitive filter to evaluate themselves and judge others around them. This process takes place silently and sophisticatedly, creating invisible psychological pressure on the central nervous system, forcing the individual to voluntarily restrict their behavior according to the exact desire of the system without needing any mechanical coercion. Research from Oxford University affirms that cognitive manipulation through monopolizing truth definition is more dangerous than any physical violence because it turns the victim into a self-jailer, voluntarily framing their life into artificial language concepts, blinding their eyes before the vast free living reality values out there. Piercing through this sophisticated manipulation mechanism, we will together dissect a core practical metaphor used by Michel Foucault to expose the root issue, the label maker and the designated person. Imagine modern society is like a giant factory where the power holder always holds a magical labeling pen, continuously stamping every aspect of human life. They define what is a competent worker, what is a model citizen, and what is an eccentric failure. The unique clay shard of your life entering this space is immediately stamped with rigid cognitive codes by that labeling pen, forcing you to play the role of an obedient component inside the system machine. In real daily life, most human suffering and torment arise precisely from being completely helpless and accepting those external labels as the sole metric for self-worth. When looking at your bank account, your job position, or judgments from superiors, then self-assigning the label of a weak loser, you are accidentally validating the power game of others. You drown your own life with negative self-suggestion loops based on artificial standards imposed by the system. The objective reality out there is inherently an extremely rich land filled with vivid living resources and free independent paths. But the word cage of the truth definer has imprisoned your free steps, making you live in a permanent state of fear and anxiety. Clutching onto artificial labels has suffocated all unique creative capacity, turning your life into a chain of exhausting days trying to satisfy illusory standards that do not belong to you. You are completely helpless, unable to see actual resources and free paths manifesting right on the reality land of your own. The Sharp Cognitive Subversion by Michel Foucault against the power-knowledge relationship brings an ultimate practical solution for modern humans to heal all cognitive wounds and reclaim great soul sovereignty. He taught us that, wishing to liberate the mind from the manipulation trap, the first and most core step is to bravely perform a major mental deconstruction, dismantling the entire system of external labels stamped on your life. You must understand that no one or no institution possesses the supreme power to define who you are except yourself. The metrics of wealth or poverty winning or losing. All crowd standards are merely language games set up by power institutions to establish governing order. When you penetrate the artificial nature of knowledge, you will wake up, realizing all separating boundaries can be erased, all definitions can be overturned, and the value of your soul lies in pure unique existence, not depending on any certificate, title, or external validation. Shedding the social labeling pen, stopping parasitic living on imposed titles and standards, is the golden key for you to re-establish deep peace within your perception, walking freely, independently, and steadfastly amid a world filled with prejudices and sophisticated manipulation traps. The question raised for yourself right now is, are you brave enough, like Michel Foucault, daring to look straight into the labels imposed on your life, to personally tear down that artificial conceptual cage, or not? Part 4. Continuing to expand the cognitive boundary of postmodernism, we will join the philosopher Michel Foucault to enter a shocking social psychology deconstruction named Panopticon, model to understand the highly sophisticated way modern society has installed an invisible surveillance cage directly inside your mind, making you voluntarily become the jailer, imprisoning and torturing your own life through his classic work Discipline and Punish. The philosopher Michel Foucault borrowed the ideal prison architectural design of Jeremy Bentham to expose the nature of modern cognitive control systems. He pointed out that the supreme peak of social power is not sending police to track your every action or using physical violence to force compliance with order. Instead, the peak of domination is making you voluntarily restrict yourself, automatically modifying your behavior and continuously judging your own thoughts according to the exact desire of the crowd, even when you are alone inside an empty room. This manipulation is so sophisticated that it converts the external surveillance mechanism into an automatic internal reflex, causing modern humans to always live in a permanent state of anxiety and panic. They continuously look around, comparing themselves with models on social media, then tormenting their own soul with negative self-suggestion loops when seeing themselves fail to reach illusory standards, without realizing that the prison cage is entirely operated by their own mind, based on the fear of social prejudice, to provide an objective empirical scientific foundation proving this terrifying self-surveillance mechanism. Extensive studies at Princeton University regarding crowd psychology and self-conformity have provided highly valuable behavioral psychology evidence. Leading scientists at Princeton University conducted long-term surveys to track how humans change behavior and nervous stress levels when believing they are being observed by the community. The empirical research results point out a shocking truth that when an individual lives within a highly connected environment, continuously exposed to crowd norms, their cognitive system will automatically activate a permanent alert mode. The brain automatically labels all behaviors deviating from the crowd as dangerous, creating invisible and extremely heavy psychological pressure on the central nervous system. Research from Princeton University affirms that most states of clinical depression, anxiety, and mental exhaustion of humans in this era do not stem from any direct physical pressure outside, but arise from the fact that they continuously judge and restrict themselves to satisfy an illusory surveillance system woven by themselves. Modern science from Princeton University illuminates the vision of Michel Foucault, proving that your cognitive world is being suffocated by an invisible watchtower, where you voluntarily become the greatest enemy of yourself, continuously cutting the freedom boundary of your unique soul to exchange for illusory validation from the crowd out there. Piercing through this sophisticated self-imprisonment trap, we will together analyze the core metaphor of the circular prison and the dark watchtower to understand the nature of the suffering you are holding. Imagine a prison designed in a circular shape, with hundreds of isolated cells facing a towering central watchtower in the middle. This watchtower is always covered by dark, one-way glass windows, making prisoners in surrounding cells completely helpless, unable to see whether there is a guard inside or not because of being unable to know when they are observed. Prisoners are forced to self-assume that they are always being watched, every single second, and consequently they restrict their own behavior, adjusting their sitting posture, converting themselves into a completely obedient entity to avoid punishment. In real daily life, most modern humans are self-locking themselves inside such a mental panopticon cell. The central watchtower is the lens of public opinion, the likes on social media, the remarks of others, and the success mold of the era. You do not see anyone standing to guard your life, but you automatically install their surveillance eyes directly inside your head when you want to quit a toxic job, to pursue passion when you want to live authentically with your own sexuality, or when you simply want to live a peaceful life without chasing wealth. You immediately stop because the internal watchtower speaks up, judging you. You drown the genuine desires of your soul, self-assigning the label of an eccentric loser. The objective reality out there is inherently an extremely vast space filled with freedom and vivid living resources, but the word cage of the illusory watchtower has imprisoned your steps, making you completely helpless, living a fake life, hiding your unique nature behind social norm masks. The sharp cognitive subversion by Michel Foucault against the watchtower model brings an ultimate practical solution for modern humans to shatter the self-surveillance cage, liberating the soul from the ghost of public opinion. He pointed out that, wishing to reclaim deep peace within perception, the most core step is that you must bravely pull down the illusory watchtower ruling inside your head. You must mindfully realize that the central watchtower is actually empty. There is no guard out there free enough to follow and judge your life. All those judging eyes and harsh metrics are self-imported by you, self-allowing them to possess the power to manipulate your existence. When you penetrate the artificial nature of the control system, you will wake up shedding all external labels, stopping parasitic living on crowd validation to confidently walk with your bare feet on your own free reality land. You have no obligation to fit into the social mold, no obligation to satisfy any watchtower system. Let us return the mind to its most pristine, empty state, where you freely define yourself worth using genuine experiences within each present moment, tearing down the norm mask so your unique soul can speak its free voice amid a constantly changing world. The question raised for yourself now is, are you brave enough, like Michel Foucault, stepping out of the conceptual cell to personally pull down the dark watchtower in your head right now, or not? Part 5. Moving to the fifth content part of the Postmodern Philosophy series, we will together approach a supreme peak of cognitive challenge, bringing ultimate liberation power to human perception, which is the deconstruction theory by the genius philosopher Jacques Derrida. Through his highly sharp and unique argument system, he performed a great linguistic operation, shaking the entire foundation of Western philosophy built upon the rigid framing of concepts. Jacques Derrida pointed out that human thinking across thousands of years has always been trapped within A harsh binary opposition. Cognitive snare, which is the automatic tendency to divide objective reality into two mutually exclusive polar opposites like right and wrong, wealth and poverty, success and failure, good and bad. The artificial language system does not stop at merely separating, but always silently establishes a power order worshipping one side while degrading the remaining side, making humans always live in a permanent state of extreme prejudice, tormenting their own soul when seeing themselves fail to belong to the socially preferred side. Deconstruction theory appears not to destroy words, but to dismantle the entire prejudice structure hidden inside language, proving that the real world is inherently a highly rich, vivid color spectrum, never being two separated black and white polar opposites. When you learn to deconstruct concepts, you will mindfully realize all prejudice walls imprisoning your mind for so long will automatically collapse, liberating your soul from the harsh judgments of the crowd, walking freely amid life to provide an objective, empirical scientific foundation, proving this mistaken binary thinking tendency of the human brain. Extensive studies at Harvard University regarding cognitive psychology and critical linguistics have provided highly valuable conclusions. Leading scientists at Harvard University conducted long-term empirical experiments measuring cognitive responses and labeling tendencies of individuals facing complex life situations. The research results point out a shocking truth that the human nervous system, due to evolutionary habits and social language installation, always has an automatic tendency to simplify reality by putting all phenomena into opposing concept draws. Research from Harvard University proves that continuously thinking according to rigid binary pairs like winning and losing or gaining and losing will immediately activate a severe cognitive conflict state, creating invisible and extremely heavy psychological pressure on the nervous system, making the individual always live in a permanent state of stress and anxiety, losing the capacity to adapt flexibly to actual changes. Empirical science from Harvard University affirms that the nature of reality is always uncertain and multi-dimensional, and your perception will be completely healed and liberated when you bravely shatter outdated binary filters, stepping out of the word cage to perceive life in the most comprehensive, pure, objective way. Piercing through this binary thinking trap, we will together analyze a core practical metaphor opened by Jacques Derrida to expose the root issue, which is dismantling an outdated machine. Imagine the language system and social binary prejudices are like a complex mechanical machine assembled from thousands of dry, rigid word components. This machine continuously operates to classify your life, forcing you to choose one of two sides, either a glorious winner or a gloomy failure. The unique clay shard of your life entering this space is immediately trimmed and forced into pre-made molds by the machine. In real daily life, most human suffering and torment arise precisely from being trapped within that mechanical structure. When looking at a single stumble, an unsuccessful project, or a broken relationship, then immediately assigning the label of an unfortunate loser to yourself, you are accidentally validating the harsh binary structure of society. You drown your own life with negative self-suggestion loops based on hollow words. Deconstruction theory teaches us how to play the role of a mindful engineer, conducting the dismantling of each concept component to prove that inside the word failure always contains countless vivid materials of growth, and inside the crowd success always hides hollow pressures. The objective reality out there is inherently a free land filled with vivid resources, but the word cage of Opposing pairs has imprisoned your steps, making you completely helpless, living a fake life, fearing judgment, losing the capacity to see free paths manifesting right before your eyes. The Sharp Cognitive Subversion by Jacques Derrida against binary pairs brings an ultimate practical solution for modern humans to self-heal all cognitive wounds and re-establish deep peace within the soul. He affirmed that truth does not lie within any opposing side. Truth is precisely the thorough understanding of the artificial nature of words. To stop clutching onto language when you deconstruct concepts, you will mindfully realize there is no absolute boundary separating wealth and poverty, or competence and weakness. The value of your soul lies within pure, unique existence, not depending on any external label imposed on your life by society. Shedding binary thinking, stopping the division of the world into two black and white extremes is the golden key for you to open wide the conceptual prison door, walking freely, independently and steadfastly amid a constantly changing universe. This powerful cognitive shift of deconstruction theory finds a deep, miraculous and astonishingly consistent harmony with the non-duality concept, the emptiness philosophy of Buddhism, and the flexible nature of Taoism. In the East, sages from thousands of years ago penetrated that when the mind still discriminates, still compares right and wrong, revealing prejudice, reality is instantly divided and distorted. When achieving the non-duality thinking state, seeing all things rely on each other to co-exist, you will learn to become much more compassionate toward yourself, knowing how to heal all perception wounds to achieve true wisdom. The question raised for yourself right now is, are you brave enough, like Jacques Derrida, daring to look straight into the prejudice pairs tearing your mind apart, to personally dismantle that binary conceptual cage, or not? Part 6. Moving to the sixth content part of the Postmodern Philosophy series, we will join the genius philosopher Jacques Derrida to explore a highly mysterious cognitive keyword bringing ultimate mental liberation power from rigid stubbornness, known as the difference concept, or the perpetual deferral of linguistic meaning. Through this unique term, he exposed a grand human illusion about chasing an absolute truth or a perfect fixed destination within human life. Jacques Derrida proved that language and words never contain a complete meaning. Immediately when you name a concept, its true meaning is always deferred, always relying on other words to define itself, meaning all answers and social metrics on this earth are merely relative, constantly shifting, and never possess a permanent stop. Understanding this deferral nature of language helps modern humans untie themselves from the perfectionism obsession, liberating the mind from rigid thinking to learn compassion and live harmoniously with the incomplete, volatile nature of reality, to provide an objective, empirical scientific foundation for this cognitive instability. Extensive studies at Princeton University regarding behavioral psychology and the human tendency to seek absolute certainty have provided highly valuable conclusions. Leading scientists at Princeton University conducted long-term empirical experiments measuring nervous stress and cognitive responses of individuals facing ambiguous, incomplete or lacking information situations in life. The research results point out a shocking truth that the human brain, due to biological instincts, always possesses an extreme tendency to seek an absolute answer, a perfect destination, to clutch onto. Research from Princeton University proves that when an individual stubbornly forces themselves to find a perfect solution within a constantly transforming reality, their central nervous system will immediately fall into an overload state, creating invisible and extremely heavy psychological pressure leading to chronic anxiety symptoms and existential depression. Empirical science from Princeton University affirms that your perception will be completely healed and re-establish deep peace when you bravely discard the absolute certainty illusion, learning to accept the uncertain multi-dimensional color spectrum of real life. Piercing through this conceptual attachment trap, we will together analyze a core practical metaphor opened by Jacques Derrida to expose the root issue, which is chasing the horizon. Imagine your journey of seeking absolute truth or a perfect destination is like trying to run to catch the horizon. Far away objective reality out there is inherently a free vast land, constantly transforming, but the horizon is merely an illusory boundary built by your own perspective. The more you try to approach that illusory destination, the further it moves away, creating an endless snare, exhausting your living resources and mental energy. In real daily life, most modern human suffering and torment arise precisely from being completely helpless and exhausted, frantically chasing conceptual horizons drawn by society, when blaming yourself for an imperfect marriage, a career not reaching supreme peaks, or possessing incomplete personal flaws. You are accidentally locking yourself inside the word cage of rigid stubbornness. You drown your own life with negative self-suggestion loops based on a destination that does not exist. The difference concept teaches us how to let go of that meaningless race, understanding that all incompleteness or broken cracks are a natural part of vivid reality, helping you shed pressure to see actual resources manifesting right beneath your feet. The Sharp Cognitive Subversion by Jacques Derrida against the absolute truth illusion brings an ultimate practical solution for modern humans to self-heal perception, achieving the true state of absolute freedom amid life. He affirmed that deep peace does not lie in finding a perfect answer, but lies within the brave capacity to live harmoniously with the incomplete, volatile reality. When you deconstruct the attachment to words, you will mindfully realize your soul worth lies within the pure experience of each present moment, not depending on fitting into any perfect social mold. This powerful cognitive shift of the difference concept finds a deep, miraculous, and consistently astonishing harmony with the impermanence philosophy, the letting go spirit of Buddhism, and the natural flow alignment of Taoism in the East. Sages from thousands of years ago penetrated that when humans stubbornly go against the impermanent flow, wishing to turn temporary things into eternal entities, suffering and anxiety will instantly surround them. When you know how to discard the language ladder, shedding rigid binary thinking, your mind automatically achieves the supreme state of absolute freedom. Your soul is completely healed, walking freely, steadfastly, and wisely amid a changing world. Is your mind brave enough, like Jacques Derrida, daring to let go of the race, chasing illusory horizons, returning to embrace the incomplete but authentic reality of your own right now or not? Part 7. Closing the volatile cognitive deconstruction journey of postmodernism. We will together enter the final chapter, where the sharp deconstructive arguments of Michel Foucault and Jacques Derrida find a miraculous and astonishingly consistent harmony with the supreme ancient Eastern wisdom, the spirit of postmodern liberation combined with non-self and emptiness. This is not merely a theoretical summary, but an invitation for you to perform the final cognitive leap, to completely shed every conceptual cage imprisoning your soul. Michel Foucault taught us how to pierce through the manipulation of power hidden within knowledge, Jacques Derrida helped us dismantle harsh, binary prejudice structures. And now standing at the peak of mindfulness, you will realize that their core common effort was returning reality to its pristine original state, where no label, no title or no template possesses the supreme power to define your human essence. Objective reality is inherently a completely free and empty space from artificial prejudices, but it is filled with life and resources for those brave enough to discard the language ladder, living and perceiving the present life directly, to provide a solid empirical scientific perspective for this mental liberation state. Extensive studies at Princeton University regarding cognitive psychology and the state of delabeling have provided extremely valuable conclusions. Leading scientists at Princeton University conducted long-term studies measuring the change of stress hormone levels and brain wave frequencies of individuals practicing observing reality without imposing prejudice or judgment. The empirical research results point out a shocking truth: that when an individual bravely performs cognitive deconstruction, stopping clutching onto social labels like success, failure, or imposed titles, their nervous system immediately reaches the optimal relaxation state, activating self-healing capacity and clearing all unique creative flows. Research from Princeton University proves that shedding attachment to names and forms is not rejecting life but re-establishing a deeper and more authentic connection with the real world, helping the individual achieve deep peace within perception and possessing a steadfast, strong spirit amid all external volatility. Empirical science from Princeton University affirms that the postmodern deconstruction journey is the shortest path for you to find your own original true face amid a universe filled with linguistic illusions. Piercing through this liberation journey, we will together contemplate the final core practical metaphor about the calm lake and the ripples of names and forms. Imagine your mind and reality are like a vast, clear lake, so still that it can fully reflect the high, vast sky. That reality is inherently free, empty, and does not carry any label or definition, but due to social installation, due to meta-narratives and linguistic power games, we continuously throw prejudice stones into the lake, creating countless ripples of comparison, judgment, and torment. In real daily life, most modern human suffering arises from mistakenly considering those ripples as the nature of the lake. When you are too attached to the labels of wealth or poverty, winning or losing, you are blinding yourself before the empty freedom of your soul lake. Objective reality out there still exists, filled with resources and free paths, but the word cage of the prejudice watchtower has made you completely helpless, living a parasitic life on crowd validation. Postmodern liberation, according to the Eastern Spirit, teaches us how to stop throwing stones into the lake, learning how to see through conceptual ripples, returning to the pure mindful state. When you shed the social norm, mask your unique soul will automatically speak its free voice, walking freely amid reality without being haunted by any linguistic ghost. Our cognitive deconstruction journey ends here, but it is also the moment a new life truly begins for you. The cognitive subversion of Michel Foucault and Jacques Derrida. combined with the non-self and emptiness wisdom of the East brings you invincible practical power. You are no longer the clay, trimmed by the social mold. You are no longer the prisoner, self-locking in the public opinion watchtower. You are the creator of freedom, the mindful engineer, possessing the power to deconstruct all prejudices to personally draw your own authentic happiness map. The world out there may still be volatile binary pairs may still surround you, and power knowledge traps are always present. But when you possess an empty, clear perception, you will walk amid the world without being moved by the world. Bravely discard the conceptual ladder, shedding the absolute perfection illusion to fully live with your own incomplete but vivid reality. That is precisely the supreme wisdom and freedom state that any soul longs for. Smile and step out of the word cage right now to breathe the air of free present reality. The final question for yourself is, after together dismantling all cognitive imprisonment walls, are you ready to bravely live a life without labels, without masks, and completely free with your own unique self from this very moment, or not?